In the winter of 1999, India faced an agonizing choice. Armed hijackers had seized Indian Airlines Flight 814, holding 176 civilian lives in the balance. To save them, the government was forced into a corner. On the tarmac in Kandahar, a young intelligence officer named Ajit Doval stood by and watched as his country's hands were tied. He witnessed the exact moment India surrendered its leverage to secure the hostages. The price of those 176 lives was the release of a single man, Masood Azhar. He walked free that day and used his liberty to build a militant empire that systematically targeted India for the next 2 decades. That forced surrender created a deep 25-year psychological scar inside Indian intelligence. For Doval and the security apparatus, Kandahar remained an open wound, a vow to never let the nation be rendered that helpless again. Fast forward to April 2025. The Bayasaran Valley in Pahalgam is a quiet landscape of pine forests and snowy peaks. On a breezy afternoon, families and newlyweds were scattered across the grass, soaking in the view. At 1:30 p.m., the quiet broke. A group of heavily armed militants stepped out of the tree line. They didn't fire blindly. Instead, they walked through the crowd, pointing rifles and asking a single question: are you Hindu or Muslim? Among the victims was Army Lieutenant Vinay Narwal, married just 6 days earlier, shot dead in front of his wife. In the chaos, a local horseman named Adil saw a militant aim at a Hindu tourist. Adil stepped directly in front of the barrel and tried to wrestle the rifle away. Because he broke their ideological rules to protect a stranger, the attackers killed him on the spot. When Pakistan publicly dismissed the massacre as a freedom struggle, India stopped drafting diplomatic protests. Within hours, Prime Minister Modi returned from a foreign summit to authorize a strategy of direct, preemptive strikes on enemy soil. The retaliation began with immediate economic and diplomatic pressure. India restricted the flow of the Indus Water Treaty rivers, the lifeblood of Pakistan's agriculture, halted all visas, and blocked Pakistani media from digital platforms to isolate the state. Inside South Block, the intelligence grid went live. Satellites, drones, and ground agents began tracking enemy movement in real time, providing the Prime Minister and Ajit Doval with live updates on every active militant camp. After identifying 21 active militant installations, the military command filtered the list to 9 high-priority targets. These 9 locations served as the specific training grounds for the 2611 Mumbai gunmen, the Pulwama suicide bombers, and the killers in Pahalgam. The command structure had decided to systematically eliminate a generation of militant leadership rather than settle for a localized border skirmish. To ensure their jets could cross the border uncontested, the military needed the enemy's air defense grid looking the wrong way. On May 6th, India publicly announced massive mock military drills across 244 northern cities. This surge of activity forced Pakistan's radar operators to lock their focus squarely on the northern border. But the actual threat was miles away. Deep in the south, under the cover of night, an entire fighter jet squadron was fueling and arming on the tarmac at the Tanjavur Air Base. This bait and switch manipulated the enemy's situational awareness. While they stared intently at the northern distraction, they left their southern airspace exposed for the incoming strike. In the early hours of May 7th, the Indian Air Force swept in from the south. Over the next 25 minutes, precision missiles leveled the selected camps one by one. The final strike hit 100 kilometers across the international border, deep inside Bahawalpur. The blast leveled the headquarters of Masood Azhar, killing his top commanders and his brother. The retaliatory response was immediate. Pakistan launched a barrage of explosive drones and missiles aimed at Indian residential areas and military bases. But India was ready. Advanced S-400 missile defense batteries immediately locked on to the incoming targets, intercepting and destroying every projectile midair. By executing these deep penetration strikes and then neutralizing the return fire, India tested a high-stakes tactical theory. They showed they could dismantle cross-border infrastructure and immediately absorb the retaliatory strike, preventing the incident from spiraling into an uncontained war. The tactical results were clear. In 25 minutes, 9 militant camps were gone, over 100 targets were eliminated, and the operation concluded without collateral damage. But the final blow was psychological. Hours after the operation, India held a global press conference to present the evidence. They placed two specific military officers on the stage. Presenting the footage were Indian Army Colonel Sophia Qureshi, a Muslim, and Indian Air Force Wing Commander Vamika Singh, a Hindu. That specific pairing was a calculated message. The attackers in Pahalgam tried to divide a nation by asking a victim's religion. Seeing two women of different faiths stand side by side to dismantle that exact network proved the logic of the massacre had failed. For Himanshi, the young widow who lost her husband in Pahalgam, the destruction of the Bahawalpur headquarters offered a measure of definitive justice. And for Ajit Doval, the architect of the retaliation, the 25-year debt of Kandahar was finally paid. The helplessness he felt on the tarmac in 1999 had been resolved through this operation. Yet Operation Sindoor carries a caveat. Physical compounds can be destroyed, and individual commanders can be eliminated, but new camps can always be constructed in the mountains. India demonstrated military dominance through technology and precision, but the underlying ideology, the hatred that trains a man to ask a stranger's religion before pulling the trigger, is a threat that missiles alone cannot erase.